Hey there folks! Welcome to the fourth instalment of my clearly not so brief history of Godzilla, where I've been running down the films and media of our beloved kaiju hero. But today we're going to start off with a quick look at something else. In 2007, cinema goers were treated to the trailer for a mysterious new film, with no title provided. This lit up imaginations around the world, with the most prevalent idea being that it was a new entry in the Godzilla series, with a dark, serious, more mature edge. This film would come out as Cloverfield, an innovative take on the kaiju genre, where our protagonists are trying to survive the attack of a kaiju in New York. We see the action via found footage, and so glimpse the story through their eyes. No exposition dumps or military scientists in lab coats surrounding computers. It was fresh, exciting, and perhaps most importantly of all, hugely successful, winning numerous awards, taking in almost 7 times its budget, and spawning a franchise of its own. After the success of Cloverfield, it was only a matter of time before Godzilla would return to reclaim its title as King of the Monsters. And in 2009, Legendary Pictures obtained the rights to Our Lovable Friend and started work on his comeback film the following year. The 2014's Godzilla was a breakthrough moment for kaiju films, as a Godzilla film was successful around the world, not only as a cult sleeper hit, but as a mainstream Hollywood blockbuster movie, earning over $500 million. The film succeeded where the previous American attempt had failed, sticking closer to traditional Godzilla films in both design and tone, yet also being able to define itself with its own sense of unique identity. This film is truly about scale and plays it up with some excellent effects shots and an explanation for the kaiju that sees humanity more of observers of an incomprehensibly ancient life cycle than as the targets of kaiju rage. The visuals bring home a sense of realism, drawing imagery from the 2004 Asian tsunami, 9/11, Hurricane Katrina, and the more recent Fukushima disaster, to create a danger that feels very real. The design of Godzilla is on point, keeping the more traditional shape but emphasising aquatic elements to its look. The Big G's rivals in this film are a pair of Mutos, massive unidentified terrestrial organisms, which look sleek and almost alien in comparison, giving us a clear visual identifier that these are the villains. Where Legendary's Godzilla falls down though, is its lack of interesting human characters, with the exception of Bryan Cranston's obsessive widower. Everybody else seems to be bland without any real personality. Another criticism the film regularly receives is that it's held back on the monster action until the very end of the film, though to be honest, this was also common amongst many of the Showa era films. Needless to say, Legendary's Godzilla was a huge success, and made Godzilla seem cool again. With toys littering the shelves of toy stores, comics in comic stores, and rumblings that 2 sequels would be in the works, as well as a shared universe featuring more classic kaiju. Indeed, just over a year later, Legendary announced that Godzilla would once again be facing off against its old enemy in 2020's Godzilla vs. Kong. But before that, there would be something else. Something strange and new was emerging from Godzilla's home in Japan. Inspired by the success of Legendary's Godzilla movie, Toho Studios were keen to capitalise on the King's newly returned fame, and knew that the time was ripe for some drastic changes to the tried and true Godzilla formula of the anti-hero mutated dinosaur guardian of Earth, and a return to Godzilla's roots as a terrifying monstrosity representing the nuclear fears of its age. And who better to helm a story about giant monsters and deep political subtext than Neon Genesis Evangelion's Hideaki Anno, who would also co-direct this film alongside Shinji Higuchi of Gamera and GMK fame. Godzilla was initially intended to be portrayed in this film via a combination of traditional suit-based techniques aided with computer animation, and teaser images released of this sculpt just lit the imaginations of everyone. The drastic redesign split the fandom, leading to some rumours that this was the original Godzilla returning as a zombie. But for me, it is a fantastic reimagining, a horrifying monster whose own body struggles to keep up with its immense power and accelerated growth, creating the most nightmarish kaiju of all time, whilst retaining the iconic silhouette from the first film. Shin Gojira would end up using CGI effects for Godzilla, but retained the use of miniatures for various effects shots, which really helped give a sense of realism and weight to the finished film. Story-wise, Shin Gojira is essentially a remake of the original Gojira, where an unknown monster appears, wrecks stuff, and people have to stop it. It brings in the element of other countries wanting to use nuclear weapons against it, from Godzilla 1984, as well as an extremely well-written political satire running throughout, as the government is restricted in their actions by protocol and regulations. I don't want to go into too much detail about the plot, as I believe this film is one you really have to watch. In Japan, Shin Gojira was a huge success, being nominated for and winning several awards, as well as being the second highest grossing live-action film in 2016. It was a critical success, with its satire of the ineffectual way the government handled the disaster, and depictions of utter devastation, recalling the recent tsunami and the still technically ongoing Fukushima nuclear leak. The film was also praised for appealing to both the older generation, who regularly go to cinemas during the daytime and were drawn to the film by a nostalgia for older Godzilla films, and the younger generation, as well as encouraging repeated viewings with its layered subtext and subtle references. The film received a limited release around the world and an exceptionally limited cinema run in the UK of 1 day in select cinemas. The worldwide reception of Shin Godzilla, its global release title, was more subdued than in Japan, particularly in America, where its strong stance against US interference in domestic affairs and unique structure which didn't rely on Hollywood-style action beats received some resistance. Personally, as a long-time fan of both Anno and Godzilla, Shin Gojira was like a dream come true and is easily one of my all-time favourite movies. The scene where Goji first unleashes its radiation breath is just, if you'll excuse the pun, simply breathtaking. Shin Gojira was not the only Godzilla-based event to occur in 2016. Oh no. In August of that year, Toho announced that there would be a Godzilla anime movie in the following year. But before that, we must briefly hop back to America, where Legendary Studios' own series of kaiju films would be rebranded as components of a monsterverse, with the next film in March 2017. That film was Kong Skull Island, an action-packed fun adventure film which laid out several of the foundations for the monsterverse, such as where the monsters came from, and further illustrating the history of 2014 Godzilla's Monarch organisation. While this film is about King Kong and not Godzilla, the Big G does make an appearance in the film's post-credits scene, where we see cave paintings of Godzilla, Rodan, Mothra, and King Ghidorah, setting the stage for the next entry in the monsterverse, Godzilla, King of the Monsters.
Will perish, and so will we. They are the only guarantee that life will carry on.
Naturally, Toho weren't going to have Godzilla stay solely in America, as they too went on to announce their plans for the franchise with annual kaiju films as part of an ongoing cinematic universe following Legendary's Kong vs Godzilla, which is scheduled for 2020. But now we go straight back to the anime, which was a commercial and critical success. Godzilla, Planet of the Monsters, sees the Earth in ruins, devastated and shaped by kaiju dominance, with humankind now adrift in space, evacuees, but joined by two alien races whose planets faced a similar fate. We follow the story of Haruo Sakaki, a human determined to reclaim the Earth and fight against the impossible might of Godzilla. The film features some excellent action scenes and has a unique visual style. And while elements of its characterization and plot do feel rather generic, it remains interesting and a decent enough watch in my opinion, especially the amazing cliffhanger of a climax. For you see, this film was not a standalone experiment for the franchise. Oh no. it was the first part of a trilogy. The second of which, City on the Edge of Battle, shows us that humanity had somehow survived on Earth over all of these years. Not only that, but so had the ultimate anti-Godzilla weapon, Mechagodzilla. But over time, Mechagodzilla had evolved and grew, so it was less of the traditional Godzilla-shaped robot and more an impressive fortress, a whole city designed for the sole purpose of defeating Godzilla. To go further into the plot would reveal a genuinely disturbing twist, which needs to be seen to be believed. I can say, however, that the creature who destroyed the Exif's homeworld is revealed in this film's final moments and will star in the upcoming final part of the trilogy, Godzilla the Planet Eater. However, it is worth mentioning that contrary to popular belief, these films were not actually Godzilla's anime debut. That film occurred just 1 year before Planet of the Monsters' release, as Shin Gojira took on the immortal Shin-chan.
立ち向かうは春日部防衛隊7月22日しんのすけ対シン・ゴジラ。
Phew! So that has been it for all the Godzilla films released up to now. But naturally, more has gone on than just the movies. To begin with, Godzilla returned to toy shelves in the Western world, not only with a tie-in toy line to the 2014 movie, but with a collector-focused line by NECA, who have brought highly detailed renditions of various Godzilla designs to the market at an affordable price. Whilst the quality and design has been somewhat hit and miss, they are what brought me into seriously collecting Godzilla merch. Over in Japan, SH Monster Arts has continued to be a series of excellent figures, reaching further heights with the launch of the Kokyo Kyoku subline, which at the time of writing only features one figure, Biogoji, but it is without a doubt the best looking posable figure of Godzilla yet made. A Shin Gojira figure is in the works. Godzilla would also return to the world of video games, with Godzilla vs. for the PlayStation 3 and later ported to the PS4, which featured detailed and realistic depictions of Kaiju from all three eras of Godzilla history battle it out across fully destroyable cityscapes. This game has a very mixed reception, with some people absolutely adoring it, but most others regarding it as one of the worst games in recent years. I feel this is due to the nature of the game not being so understood in Western markets, as it is not an arcade beat-em-up, but feels more like a series of interactive dioramas where the true aim is not just to win, but to get some awesome looking screenshots. This theory is further aided by the game including a literal virtual diorama mode. Godzilla would also appear in 2017's City Shrouded in Shadow, a survival-paced RPG which also features Gamera, Ultraman, Ghidorah, and Evangelion Unit 1, amongst many other monsters. However, unfortunately, there is no scheduled Western release, which makes me sad inside. And well, that's it. We are now up to date on the main comings and goings in the world of Godzilla. I am sure I left out several important aspects of the franchise, but it is only natural what with it being the longest running series in cinema history and all. Each individual thing I have said in this series could have been expanded on with its own full-length video. In fact, I initially intended for this to be one 20-minute episode about the history of all Godzilla, but there was so much to talk about that I simply couldn't do it, and had to stretch it out into what has been 4 episodes. I will likely return to Godzilla again at some point in the future, but for those who can't wait, I will link some awesome Godzilla content provided by other people in the description. All that is left for me to say is thank you for joining me on this monster-sized adventure. I hope you enjoyed this little walk down Godzilla Lane and feel like sticking around as I explore the worlds of geeky stuff and music stuff. Keep it real, folks. Bye!